Hello, and welcome back to the Cosmic Cookbook Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me again, Cosmic Explorers, and these episodes, I've got episode 3 and 4 that I'm recording at the moment. I want to release them at the same time because I had a bit of a break from the podcast over the last couple weeks. I was looking after the website for Hallucid Nation, and setting all that up, I deleted the whole site a couple times, so that wasn't the best, but I've recovered. I actually recovered the site, but then decided I didn't want it, so that was interesting. But today, I have a jam-packed episode, and it comes to us from a comment I got on one of the Instagram posts recently from Anthromo Designs, and they are a spiritual streetwear brand for clothing on Instagram. You can check them out. I'll tag them in the description below. They have amazing designs, and if you look at their bio, it says that they are exploring the human experience, and they commented on a post that mentioned that exact topic, and they said something like, "Oh, I can't wait to listen in about the human experience. That sounds really interesting." And I thought, oh, of course. That is probably something I should cover, seeing as the Astral Approach and the Transcendence Trail covers that pretty much for the whole program. That is what it aims to improve for you. So I wanted to cover that as early on as possible, and I've decided to do it this episode. So I've decided that I'm not going to be editing the episodes as heavily as I have been with the last two. I listened back to them and I just didn't like the vibe that they were giving with how edited they felt. And it wasn't so much like the sound editing, like with the equalizer and all that. It was more the really short snippets that I'd record at a time. So I've decided to go all out and leave the little mistakes in, because after all, that's what we're here to teach. It's that the little mistakes don't matter in the grand scheme of things, and you can always learn from them, and that's what I'm aiming to do. I'm aiming to improve my long speeches and my public talking. Obviously this doesn't have an audience, so it's a bit easier, but that's something that I really want to aim for. So, going off Anthromo Designs' comment, welcome to the human experience. So, to first introduce the human experience, we have to look at what isn't the human experience, so the inverse of it, and that would be the traditional, structured life that most people go on to live, and that's how it has been for pretty much eternity, and there's only been a few people, such as like monks and very spiritual people, that have actually been able to break free from this traditional life and experience our existence as it really should be. And the traditional experience is based off our individual perceptions, so that brings in subjectivity to all topics and all events and happenings. And subjectivity and perception is amazing, because different interpretations of everything is 100% necessary, because otherwise we'd all be clones and we wouldn't actually be able to progress, because we'd all just be thinking the same things. And in teams, it's always the view that you don't have that will bring the most light to you. So, just as a little life tip, going out there and seeking out people who oppose your position on subjects is an amazing way to expand your breadth of knowledge. And debating topics, so actually delving deeper into them, not just asking people if they don't think something, or don't think the way that you do, but actually exploring why they think that and the details behind it can lead to awesome new thought patterns, and it's something I really enjoy doing. In school, I was infamous for my arguing at times, but debates as well, in class and out of class. I had a couple incidents where it went too far, but I don't know, that's just who I was, and it really did open up my eyes. Back then I was a bit more stubborn, but with my good friend, we had some amazing debates, and he did open my eyes. Shout out to Nicholas. So with perception comes schema, which is a term in psychology, which is a pattern of thinking or a pattern of behavior that leads to the way you live your life. And so we all fall into these patterns, and we all fall into patterns of behavior especially, which is just subconscious habits that we do at each point. A few that I thought up was opening doors with the same hand every time. Now obviously this comes with a couple design nuances, such as doors being designed for right-handers and most fridges also being designed for right-handers. But if you just challenge yourself to open the door with a different hand, brush your teeth with the other hand, look the other way first sometimes. I've noticed that is a really, really subconscious thing that we do. When we're looking for something or looking to cross a road, obviously again it changes for countries because one side of the road is more important, but just changing up those tiny habits is a really cool way to explore what you're doing subconsciously, and I find it really fun. So a couple things that also affect the experience are religion, past experiences, time periods, social norms, such as culture. But I want to talk about religion because it can be a very sensitive topic, and it has been quite a engaging, you could say, topic in my life, just due to conflicts between religions. But with a belief system comes a lot of different ways that you do develop a schema, and it can make pretty obvious patterns between different religions and different faiths. So by take your religion with a grain of salt, but always follow it, but always try to question what's happening, because you don't have to take it from a, oh, maybe that's wrong point of view. Take it as a, I want to learn more about this, and then that will develop a whole new line of thinking, and atheists and agnostics can also do this, and just everyone. It develops a new critical thinking point of view, and it doesn't have to be negative, as I said. It can just be building your knowledge. And with the past experiences, this can heavily affect your future, obviously. It does in a lot of ways, such as trauma, your personal experience with salesmen, as an example. I've heard that one a lot, and it develops a stigma towards them. And obviously in a lot of situations, salesmen are trying to just weasel their way into your mind and try and convince you. But in a lot of ways, they're also genuine, and a good salesman is genuine and will actually connect with you. So if you do encounter a salesman next time, or a saleswoman, don't just instantly jump to stigmatizing them. Even if you promise yourself you're not going to buy the product, take a moment and chat with them and discuss what the product is, discuss the nuances to it. And I've done this with the people that walk around trying to get people to come to church for Christianity, and instead of just, as I'm not going to deny it, I'm not religious at all, I'm purely just spiritual, but with these Christians, I don't just instantly close the door, say no thanks. I engage in a conversation with them, and a lot of times it's brought some really cool conversations, and they don't mind talking about it at all. People who actually believe in their faith and are eager to recruit you aren't going to just back down when you question stuff, because that's what they're trained for. Like, they don't expect you to step over the line straight away. They want to convince you and tell you all about it and tell you how cool it is. So ask them some questions and you'll find it's actually a really fun time. Another thing that affects your traditional experience is the time period. So obviously we're not guillotining people anymore. Yeah, it isn't the French Revolution, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to base our lives around air raids. There's a lot of things that change it. And then with that also comes societal norms, like trends and things that are acceptable. So again, guillotining people isn't really acceptable these days. The death penalty is illegal in most places in the world. So these things can affect us, but it can also change how we think about topics subconsciously. And a really big thing that I want to cover in this whole podcast is subconscious becoming conscious. And it's a really strong, powerful tool to bring to light the actual workings of yourself, because a lot of it is hidden down beneath where we can't see it. Most of our processing and most of our decision making happens subconsciously. So if you can bring as much as you can to the surface, you can then edit it and improve it and make yourself who you really want to be. So if that's the one thing you take away from this episode, bringing subconscious stuff to the surface is amazingly helpful. And then another thing that affects the traditional experience, and in negative ways a lot of the time, is emotions and feelings. And there's a little difference between them. Emotions are normally more extreme, and feelings are more gut feelings, for example. But they can come across as boredom, anger, lust, sadness, and all of these can not ruin, but put a dampener on your human experience, when in reality you could be having a positive takeaway from the experience. You're instead sitting with the feeling, moping to yourself, and it just doesn't improve your life. So what's the point of doing it? And if you want to say that it's satisfying to be angry at someone, I think you should take a step back, detach yourself from those feelings. And this is a point that comes from Buddhist philosophy, ideologies, and that is that you aren't your body, you aren't your soul, you aren't your feelings, you are what is aware of all of that. And I actually had a colleague tell me this in my last sales job, and he didn't actually consider himself Buddhist, but he'd gone to a lot of different religions and done training with them, and he'd lived in a Buddhist temple for a long time. So he told me this on the way to work one day. He gave me a ride, and it took me a long time to get the hang of it, but this is also a really important point, and that is, you aren't actually your feelings. If you really think about it, you are what is aware of your feelings, because your feelings, again, are subconscious. They happen as a reaction to something. So if you can separate yourself from those, you can start to control how you feel, and external sources can't affect you, which is an amazing, amazing skill to have, because then no one can force you to feel anything. And that saying gets thrown around a lot. It's that no one controls how you feel. But the actual idea behind it is that you are the awareness, and you don't have to feel those emotions. So if you want to have a further look into that, definitely search up some Buddhist philosophy about the awareness and the soul and the meaning of existence. And I think a lot of you will find it really interesting. So once you do detach from these feelings, you will develop what we call the real human experience, or the true human experience. And to define it is kind of hard, and even the name is quite misleading, as I wouldn't normally call it this, but the human experience, as most of you hopefully know, we are atoms. We're no different from the trees, or the water, or the planets, or the stars, or the black holes, or the air. Obviously we're a different configuration of atoms, but we're still built up of the exact same building blocks. And so what that means is that the human experience, if you want to take into account consciousness, then that changes it. But in reality, we are just existing. We are just the universe experiencing itself. So by detaching from all of this, we can then fully experience the universe and open our eyes and our souls and our whole world to endless possibilities that only exist within the cosmos and within our minds. So an important part of the human experience, as I just mentioned with us being part of the universe, everything is part of the universe. So everything is objective, everything is equal, and when I say that, I don't just mean equality for everyone, I mean everything has the potential and everything doesn't have the potential to be anything. It's a bit of a paradox, but the good things aren't not good because they're equal to the bad things, and the bad things aren't good because they're equal to the good things. It's the fact that everything can be a learning experience, and you shouldn't attach yourself or identify with any of these bad things or the good things, because either way, they aren't your particles. And I think when we do identify with stuff and things go wrong, we tend to internalize it. And by keeping these things external, we can then view the universe objectively, which is a big goal in the human experience. And by doing that, we can stay calm. Practically, we can stay calm and we can persevere, and it builds resilience because then, as I said before, these things can't control you. So to go through a few of the parts of the human experience, we're going to look at the 3 different types of situations that you can be in, and these are really general, but then obviously they apply to smaller individual situations. But these are the monotonous moments, the good moments, and the bad. So I'll start with the monotonous ones. And with these are the moments that you're driving in the car on the way to work, you're waiting in the doctor's office, you're waiting for an appointment, you're sitting in the car waiting for the groceries. It's the moments that don't make you feel anything, really, apart from boredom and maybe a little bit of annoyance at how long the person's taking to get your groceries. But these moments are the ones that you really can embrace, and they lead to a lot of profound discoveries. Personally, I've had a lot of moments where I was waiting backstage on a theatre show I was doing, and I would consciously pick something in my field of vision and dive down a rabbit hole related to it. So being backstage, there were a lot of set pieces, lots of lights, lots of different coloured lights shining from the stage. There were some nails on the ground, there was a little bit of shiny material, which I'm not sure where that was from, but I made a list on my phone, and it was all the things that I reinvented based on my rabbit holes that I went down during that show, and I ended up inventing a lot of things. Obviously reinventing, so these things already do exist, it's just I came to the conclusion that they should exist. So it was a lot of things. And then I did it in the shower the other day. I reinvented trigonometry. That was really, really cool. It was like a whole epiphany. I was doing math with the shower tiles, and eventually it led me to the fact that you can't always convert triangles into a Cartesian plane and then just do some angle math on it to find the side lengths. There's actually a ratio between the opposite and the adjacent, which, mind-blowingly, is trigonometry. So I was really happy when I came up with that. But it's these monotonous moments that you can discover new things, and they also build resilience. So by always looking for something interesting, you then break down the levels of interesting into equal parts, and a circus show that's just popped up next to the shops is just as interesting as a bug on the windshield. And another example I like to use is if you're sitting in a doctor's office, and I do this all the time, psychology really interests me, so I find this really fun. But if you're just observing everyone around you, regardless of who they are, race, ethnicity, gender, what they're doing in the doctor's office, and you just look at their social cues and their interactions with people, you can start to pick up on these awesome patterns that everyone shows. And obviously we're all unique and we're all individual, but we all have these patterns that are universal. So as you expand the demographic that you're looking at, obviously fewer and fewer become universal because there's all those things that change the traditional experience, like religion, culture, societal norms, and age. But you can notice, even just within your locality, so like people on the Sunshine Coast, you can notice a small amount of things that they all do, and then you can start to develop this knowledge, and then you can actually apply it, and that's what salespeople do. So as I mentioned before, they try and get in your head, but the way that they do that is by using psychology principles such as approachability, which is a really big one, and they use the SEEK principle for. I won't get into that this episode, that's a whole episode in itself, sales skills. But if you can start applying these to your everyday conversations, you can appear a lot more friendly, appear a lot more approachable, and actually be a lot more approachable, and be more attractive, more magnetic to people around you because you know what appeals to the general demographic. And it's a really great way to play a game with yourself and learn from those seemingly boring moments. So with the good moments, these are the ones that I'm sure very few of us would like to have less of. But I think a thing that we get caught up on is the result, which is the moment that is happy. So it's when you find out you got into that school, it's when you find out you've won the lottery, it's when you find out the person said yes to you going on a date with them. And something that I love to do, and a lot of athletes do this, and entrepreneurs, they reflect on the journey and reflect on how they did despite the result, because no matter how well you did, you can always do better. And as long as you're doing your best each time and learning from it, even when you do your best, you'll always expand as a person, and then that will have crossover knowledge, and then you can apply that to other fields, and then your whole world just exponentially increases. And that brings with it wealth in all of its forms: love, friendship, money, and self-love. And with this, you can then manage the dopamine loops that a lot of us, especially my generation, have fallen into with social media. And by appreciating not just the result, but the journey that you took to get somewhere, then you don't fall into these dopamine gratification loops, which are positive feedback loops. And I love talking about feedback loops. They're an awesome principle, and I learned about them in biology. And that is exactly what social media is, the scrolling, because all the journey is to get to the next dopamine hit is a little move of your finger up the screen to scroll. And so this removes the journey and just instantly blasts us with the result. And by taking on slightly bigger tasks slowly and slowly, you can break that really, really addictive loop and start to enjoy the journey. I think that's just one thing that you should definitely take away from this podcast as well, is enjoying the entire process. And with that comes the bad parts. Now, the bad parts can be broken up into two sections, and this is the main part of the podcast, and that is internal and external. So as I said before, with the internal stuff, you aren't your body or your thoughts, you are what is aware of them. And this can, when someone does demonstrate that they've, at least in a way, understood this subject, it comes off as emotional intelligence. So if you think about someone in your life that you consider emotionally intelligent, they will know how they're feeling, they'll know how others are feeling, and then they'll know how to work around that and work with it. And a lot of the time they'll seem to be a lot more calm than other people you know, or a lot more level-headed. And that is because they are aware of their feelings. They're aware that these emotions are happening, but they're not giving themselves to the emotion. They're simply being with it and watching it happen. And when you take this moment of calmness and you just take a step back, you can sit with it and analyze what's actually going on, and you can look at the bigger picture. And I think accidentally I've started doing this quite a lot over the last couple of years. Obviously it's not a very bad accident. I'm quite happy with it, to be honest. But in combination with my medication, of course, I haven't felt extremely angry, like to a genuine point where I'm angry, in months and months and months and months and months. Really, since I started delving into this, I haven't fully given myself to an emotion. Obviously there was the dabs of depression at the start of it, but I'm past that now, thanks to Zoloft. But when you don't give yourself to an emotion, it's amazing how you can just see the world clearly instead of having a red lens put over it. And with a red lens, you'll see this a lot more when you are stressed. And it's something I've started to feel again a little bit in the last couple of weeks, just knowing that I should be putting out a podcast episode, but wanting to really delve into the website and all that goes into creating an actual product, which is the Transcendence Trail. So I have felt stressed about that, and there's been times where I've thought that I'm not providing listeners with what I promised them. And then I've just sat with that feeling for a moment. I've reminded myself to be aware of those feelings. And then I've come back to the realization that the whole reason that I started doing this was to share what information I had when I had it, and to create an all-encompassing experience for people to learn from and to transform their lives. So I told myself that it's okay to not release an episode. It's okay to focus on this other part because progress is progress. And as long as I know I still want to do this, which I really do, that my motivation hasn't changed at all, I can take a step back and just release myself from those chains and not feel that I owe myself to anyone, and to continue doing what I want to do. And eventually that will turn into something that everyone wants. So basically, stop being stressed. It'll all be okay. Even if you don't release an episode this week, the worst that can happen is that you lose a couple of viewers. Now, with the addition of dependents, such as children or partners, or when you're working in a big company and there's a big deal, yes, if things go wrong, your life will drastically change. And with family especially, this is very stressing. I've watched my mum get stressed over this for years, and it isn't something that I've personally experienced yet. Obviously I've had little stresses in work, but if you take that step back, detach yourself, it'll all be okay. Things never really go wrong. The universe never shoots you down, it just redirects you. And I think there might be some people disagreeing with me on that, especially ones that have lived through those experiences. But if you develop a growth mindset and you start to change how you see the world, you'll realize that failures don't actually exist, or losses don't actually exist. all of it is just completely redirection. And that ability to adapt is so important. If you have a look at the art account for Hallucid Nation, it's called Psychedelics Ascension, with an X for the psychedelics. You'll see quite a few posts recently called Within Luna, and it's a relaxed, like laid back story that I've been doing through psychedelic art and through stories. And it's about a girl who wants more out of life, so she goes exploring and she starts learning all these awesome life lessons from the world around her. It's not a deep plot, it's more about the message that it portrays. And one of the episodes that I recently did was the adaptability of the universe and the amount of change that it creates. And I posted a quote as well to do with this. If you rebel against change or you deny yourself of growth, you are a renegade to reality. That's nearly the exact quote I made, but by fighting change, you're fighting the entire universe. You're fighting the entire passage of time, because nothing stays the same. And I know that change is really hard, especially when it's good to bad. It can hurt, it can create confusion, but if you force yourself to step back and view it in a positive manner, no matter how bad it is, you just force yourself to see the positives in it, you'll slowly start to develop this bulletproof mindset. It's amazing how it works. But for say example, I crashed my car in October of 2023. I totaled it, so it was a complete write-off. And instead of, in the moment, I was a bit confused. But then after it, I wasn't really sad. Like, I now didn't have a job because I needed my car for my job. I didn't have a car, so I couldn't go anywhere. I had just lost a lot of value in that car because we could have sold that later on and gotten some money back. But even after losing all of this, so I was pretty much broke, no transport. As a teenager, that's pretty hard. I just moved on. I just completely forgot about it. And that can come off, to a lot of people, that can come off as negligence or not caring. And in a way it's not caring, but it's in a positive way. It's accepting that that's happened. There's 0 point on dwelling on it. There's no point in crying over it or just moping. If you move on, you're already closer to redeeming yourself and creating the next amazing thing. So with that, I got a new job within 2 weeks, or no, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks. I had a new job, but I was applying since a week after the crash, since when I recovered, and I love that job. I actually lost it again because I didn't have a car, but after that I moved on again, and then I created Hallucid Nation. So you can see how me losing that one car leads to a lot of bad things and a little bit of struggle along the way, but then eventually it does end up at something amazing. So I just want you to know that things will never stay bad. If they're not good, they're not done. Now, I've already started talking about the external stuff quite a bit, but reframing these problems and setbacks is a perfect way to create an untouchable mindset. So I've spoken about it already quite a lot, but reframing, try to even reframe the positive things in your life, and don't change them to bad things. There's no point in doing that, but change them to a different perspective and challenge yourself to see them from a different good perspective and see how they can create different amazing changes in your life or different benefits. Because once you do that, you create more crossover knowledge, and crossover knowledge is an awesome principle where if you do tons of research in one field, you'll start to realize that some of that knowledge actually does cross over into other fields, and then you already know parts of that. And then so when you learn about a lot of different things, you're learning about an exponential number of things depending on how many you do at once. So I don't know, that might be a bit hard to explain, but knowledge does cross over into all different fields. You can think about it from a school perspective. Math does cross into biology. Biology crosses over into psychology and physics, and that happens in every single subject in life and every topic you can possibly think of. So if you start learning more things, you're going to be learning more things. I hope that wasn't too confusing. But yeah, with this growth mindset, treat every day as an opportunity to create more of an untouchability. Obviously, you'll always feel emotions, but you never have to let those emotions affect you. And it really does benefit your entire life in every single aspect. So if we look at another external factor, which a lot of people will feel very passionately about, is other people. And other people can seemingly bring on a lot of problems in our lives. This can be friends who are annoying, it can be obnoxious people at work, it can be abuse, it can be anything. But there's a quote that I read the other day, which I think is flawed, but it's a good starting point, and that is, you realize you know too much psychology when you can't get angry at someone because you know their motivations. And if you want to listen to that again, go back a couple seconds, because I think it's a good quote to start off. But the end of it, because you know their motivations. I don't think that's true, because we don't know their motivations. We don't know anyone's motivations for anything without them explicitly communicating it to us. And I think that itself perpetuates the entire meaning that the quote is trying to convey, and that is that when you realize that people have different intentions to their actions, you don't instantly jump to judging them and creating a villain out of them if they do something wrong. And this is a well-known principle in psychology called the fundamental attribution error. I'm going to call it the FAE because I don't want to say that over and over. And I'm pretty sure the FAE is some sort of association. Might be in America. But the FAE basically says that we judge others based on their intentions, but we judge ourselves off... Sorry. That was completely wrong. We judge others off their actions, but we judge ourselves off our intentions. And this kind of gets forced on us because we can't mind read, but it doesn't have to be how we live. So we judge ourselves based off what we were trying to do or what we were trying to say, but we judge others off purely what we see them do or what they do and convey to the entire world. So a good example of this is driving a car. Imagine you're driving a car and someone merges in front of you over a solid white line, which for all non-Australian drivers, I'm not sure if this applies, but you're not allowed to merge over a solid white line. Sorry, I don't know the international driving rules. But instantly you're gonna slam on your brakes. That's valid. You don't want to crash into them. But then you're gonna honk your horn. And this in itself can have different perceptions, and I'll get back to that, but by honking your horn, one way that you're going to be thinking about it is, damn this person, I want to honk to get angry at them, to let them know that they just stuffed me over. And by doing that, we don't see the intentions behind what they were doing. So if there was a car coming up their rear and the car wasn't going to stop and they had to quickly dodge out of the way, or there was someone on the road that they were trying to dodge, their intentions were completely good. And in a lot of circumstances, that was the only action that they could have done to create the best possible outcome. But instantly, you're just seeing what result it had on you and what effect it created on you. And you're not looking at the bigger picture, and you're not separating yourself from those emotions, as I've said. By taking a step back and just for a moment considering all things that could have happened, you can keep calm in those situations. And by staying calm, you can then avoid road rage. And that for me is a pretty good benefit to get from that. Now the FAE, just for a little bit of context, comes from Lee Ross in 1977. He originally coined the term, but research was done on it earlier. So it's quite an old principle in terms of modern psychology. And it's been applied in a lot of different places, including the justice system. Now, obviously every justice system around the world is different, but for the Western world, the justice system exists to prove and disprove people's innocence and guilt. And this comes under the fact that not all alleged criminals are guilty, and not all convicted criminals are innocent. Maybe I've got that wrong. Not all alleged criminals are guilty, and not all convicted criminals are guilty. I guess that's how it works. But yeah, so we can't just see someone's actions and instantly judge them for it, because there's always context to a circumstance, and there's also intentions which do come into play in the court. So if someone didn't intentionally mean to do something, it can, say for example murder can then be downgraded to manslaughter, and they can be punished for their negligence of their actions, but they can't be punished for wanting to do something because that wasn't their intentions. So really the whole justice system plays off the FAE, and I think it's a really important, and despite all of the justice system's flaws, the fact that it does address this and it does do something to deal with the FAE is, in my opinion, a really great accomplishment of humanity. And that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I will be recording the next one straight after this, and I'll probably be putting them up at the same time as well, so you can go over and watch that now, or listen to it straight away. And that one also has some really awesome topics to talk about. It's not going to be as long or as packed as this one, but it's a really interesting topic that I think I've used a lot in my life, and it can be used for negative and positive. So go have a look at that. Today we had a look at the FAE, the fundamental attribution error, and how we judge other people off their actions but ourselves off intentions, and how that can very rarely be the correct thing to do. And then we also looked at separating yourself from your body and your thoughts, and knowing that you are what is aware of them. Stepping back and taking a moment to look at the whole picture and analyze stuff. Critically think about reality. We also had a look at the human experience as a summary, and the fact that it is objectivity. It is taking every moment objectively and taking every moment with a grain of salt, and not instantly reacting to the monotonous or the bad, and reframing these to become awesome experiences, because why wouldn't you want every moment of your life to be fulfilling. It doesn't have to be happy, just have to be content. I think that's a thing that a lot of people confuse, and I think fulfillment and content is something that we should all aim a little bit more for. I want to thank Anthromo Designs for their comment on the post, and thank you for making me think about this, because I've really enjoyed this topic and I want to talk about it more in the future. Go check out them. Again, they'll be linked in the description. They've got some really nice, sleek designs. And also, I want to start doing something at the end of every episode called a media recommendation. And this can be any form of content. And this week it's going to be a Netflix series. Oh, actually no, it's not a Netflix series anymore. It used to be, but they cancelled it. And I saw some pretty funny comments about why they cancelled it. But it is the Midnight Gospel. Now, you'll have to give me a second. And this is one series, animated show created by Duncan Trussell. He also has a podcast. He is an amazing speaker, and he has some crazy thoughts. He's one of my idols, to be honest. And this show that he made fully encompasses the human experience. It's got a touch of religion in it, coming from the Christianity point of view, but even despite me being fully agnostic, I enjoyed it with everything. And I've seen a lot of comments on posts to do with it about people obsessing over it. So if you enjoyed this podcast, if you enjoyed listening to what we talk about here, go look at that, because it'll blow your mind. The animation is beautiful. It's sci-fi, but not too sci-fi. It's awesome. It's really out there. It's more of like a dreamscape kind of thing. So that's this week's. Next week I'll have something else for you. But for now, have a watch of that and expand your mind. So, thank you for listening, Cosmic Explorers. Stay curious, keep exploring, and keep growing. I'll see you on the next episode in a couple minutes on the Cosmic Cookbook Podcast.